Hello, and welcome to me screaming into the void. I hope you're doing well. As you can see from the title, we'll be talking about Locked, the movie that stars Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins. And as you can see by my face, I loved the movie. It was a lot of fun. I went into this movie very confused because, first of all, I had to kind of research a little bit about the movie because I was introducing it at a film festival. So I had to kind of find out a bit what it was all about. And as I was researching it, I realized that it was a remake from an Argentinian movie called 4x4. And already there I was like, shoot. Not another remake. Please, not another one. Why? We don't need more remakes. However, pleasantly surprised. Let me get into it. I did my due diligence and watched the original that was directed by Mariano Cohn, and I also like the original. You did notice that there was a massive budget difference between the original and the new one. The new movie was directed by David Yarovesky. He's the same director who has made Brightburn and The Hive. I will talk about both movies a little bit just so that you can also see the difference between the two and what my thoughts are on it. First of all, massive budgetary difference. 4x4, you've noticed, okay, there is one car and the guy stuck in the car. And then you have this doctor who keeps calling in. That is the entire premise. And in this one, you have the same premise, just a way more fun car. We'll get into the details. And it's just Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins. So you have these massive names attached to this movie. Both movies have their own vibes. Let's get 4x4 completely out of the way so that we can concentrate on Locked. So you have this petty thief who breaks into this car and wants to steal it. What he doesn't know is that he's being held captive by a rich doctor who then does all sorts of shenanigans and puts him on trial by torture. I've never understood how people can play vigilante by torturing other people from afar. Saw. I liked the first movie. I also like the other movies. It's a lot of torture corn, but I think by the 10th time, you kind of get what's going on and also what's up with the last movie. Still like the first one. Nothing against James Wan. For all the Saw babies out there, I liked the movie. It's all good. Back to it. He gets tortured in this car that never moves. This is gonna be something that will come up in Locked. That's why I'm saying it here. Those are the similarities. Only in the Argentinian movie, spoilers alert, you have the doctor appear while the other guy is still stuck in the car in the same place. And then there is this massive hullabaloo and the police comes and the doctor has a gun to this guy's head. And then you have a whole crowd that appears and they're like, he deserves to die. And then the police is like, I mean, he is a petty thief, but just let him be, poor guy. And in the end, the doctor kind of blows himself up. And the other guy survives. That's about the short gist of the original. Locked, however, seems to have a little more substance to it. We meet Eddie, who is a petty thief, and you already noticed that he's doing all sorts of stuff that he shouldn't. He steals from his mechanic. He needs to pick up his daughter that he keeps forgetting to or not being able to because he is busy with his work, which is petty crime. You do notice that there is this softer side to him. Maybe I should premise it like this. This movie has some very obvious traits. You know how some movies use certain scenes to portray why a character is good or bad or halfway good or halfway decent. This movie does the same. There is this one scene where there is this dog that is barking at him from a car that he wanted to steal, which he obviously then doesn't steal because the dog was barking at him. And then he gives the dog water through the window.
There you go.
So you're like, oh, how cute. Then he has this daughter relationship that is established where you're sure it's gonna come up again because It's pretty much in your face. I wasn't on the fence with Bill Skarsgård because I had seen him in his more toned down roles. There's a lot of people who are like, I don't know if Bill Skarsgård can really play a normal role because they might have only seen him in It and Nosferatu. But I had already seen him in Villains and Barbarian. I loved Villains, by the way. Cutest movie ever. I know some people will be like, cute? Really? Villains? Really? Cute? I'm like, yeah, well, they were in love. It's cute. The way she swished her hair on his face. So I already knew that he had the possibility to play more nuanced roles. And he did not disappoint in this movie at all. In this story, you have the petty thief who breaks into this car that is owned by Anthony Hopkins and gets locked into it. Ergo, the name Locked. He obviously tries his best. And there is certain parallels to the other movie. Mario Cohn co-wrote the new movie, which I liked because there is certain elements that he brought back into this movie. He has a gun and then he shoots at the car, and that's when you notice that the car is also bulletproof and the car is soundproof. But because there is this woman who passes by the car while he's banging on it and asking her for help while she's checking herself out. And then you get this call, which is named Pick Up. That's also when you notice somebody has put a lot of thought into the interior of the car. You already start getting the vibe, ooh, he is in for a wild and twisted ride. This is not gonna be fun. Even the director said that his aim was to take a crack at telling the story that he read in 4x4, but putting his own twist to it and making it his own story and making the characters also go two different paths. I also like that because in a lot of remakes, you have the story told in the same way, just Americanized. Old Boy, I hated the remake. I have such a pet peeve against that movie. Speak No Evil, they completely Americanized the ending. That was so dumb. I hated the remake of Speak No Evil. If you like the movie and you haven't seen the original, go watch the original. It was made just 2 years prior to the remake. And it's in English. Highly recommend. Such a bleak ending. It's gonna destroy you. I loved it. Eddie is stuck in this car and you quickly notice that there is something wrong. And then Anthony Hopkins calls him. Later on, you realize that he can pick up his own calls because he's obviously able to control the entire car. Because I knew the premise of the story, I honestly was just there to watch these two massive actors have this thing going on between them. So you notice also the difference and the disparity between Eddie's character and William's character, because Eddie has been dealt pretty shitty cards and he's trying to get by with the cards that he's been dealt. Living in the 2020s, everyone knows that it's not as easy to come to money as it was in the 1920s. Not that Anthony Hopkins is that old, but you see where I'm going with this. 1950s, right? People were able to buy houses, etc. And this is also very much the reflection of modern times and how people in our generation will never really have wealth unless you're born into generational wealth. So you have William's character who comes with this idea in his head that if you work hard and never do anything wrong, that you will reach your goals. However, that is not the fact these days. I feel like people have 5 jobs sometimes and kids at home and they're just not being able to even break even. There is this talk going on between them also once the calls start coming into the car and William is explaining to Bill that he has just been unlucky enough to break into the wrong car. And it's like, well, it's my car and you broke into my car, so I can do with you what I want. And I have already had 7 people in this car and none of them have reported anything to the police. Ooh. He also calls Eddie Old Sport, which is a callback to The Great Gatsby, where Gatsby calls Nick Carraway Old Sport. the whole time, like in a condescending way. And I feel like that in this movie, it has the same connotation. The things that he does in the car are very much like electrocution. He electrocutes Eddie every time that he curses, which reminded me a bit of in the old days, they used to give you a bar of soap to wash your mouth if you had a potty mouth. He basically tells Eddie, yeah, you are what's wrong with society. You also are the ones that are violent and kill people on the streets just for some cash. And Eddie's like, excuse me, what now? Where now? I have never killed anyone. So there we already see that there is a certain projection going on from William and that he actually holds a grudge against petty thieves, etc. And later on, you also get to know why, and we'll get to that. What is truly nice is how Bill Skarsgård carried most of it with Anthony Hopkins' voice. Yes, Anthony Hopkins also carried the movie just with his voice. Listen. He could creep me out right now if he were to come out of some kind of speakers coming out of my walls. I would get creeped out. On the other hand, if anybody follows him on Insta and you have seen him play piano to his cats, you will never see Hannibal the same way again. He has Eddie in this car and he explains to him, well, I'm gonna try and teach you a lesson by torturing him. And every time that Eddie tries to act out or tries to break the car, or at some point he kind of finds a button because it's an electric car that could shut the car down. He then electrocutes him again and then he puts the car on cold. I also like that when he actually starts blasting the AC, Eddie's telling him, oh, you're gonna AC me to death, are you? At some point, Eddie stops picking up the calls because he's like, I can't be bothered. You're an ass. Let me out. Just let me out of the car. You notice that William can pick up his own calls. He's like, well, I don't really need you to pick up the call. I can just do it myself. At some point, he blasts so much heat that Eddie is, and it's raining on the car, and there is this glass. And you see Eddie just licking the glass, wanting to get to that water. You could literally feel it. And the camera work is absolutely fantastic. You have, because it's such an enclosed space, you have a lot of close-ups and there is a lot of tight spaces going on and you feel very trapped. You do feel very trapped yourself also as a viewer because you're practically living with Eddie in this car for the majority of the movie. Yes, the whole movie takes place in this car. It's not taking away from the tension. There is a couple of movies that have done that. We've already spoken about that in my Surfer review, where I do commend movies that have this one location desperation going on. 12 Angry Men also takes place in one location and you have 12 angry men screaming at each other for, I think it goes on for 2 hours. And those 2 hours go by in 10 minutes. I have never been so mesmerized by 12 men screaming at each other like I have been in this movie. So once again, we are stuck in one place and this time it's a car. And even the filming was very difficult because you have to kind of create tension and yet it is all in this enclosed space. So you have to work with a lot of camera techniques and lighting techniques. The actor has to be amazing or people will get bored. You cannot have... All love to Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves, you're not gonna watch this because you don't know I exist, but you're awesome. I love you in many, many, many of your movies. But let's be honest, I don't think you would have been able... Or maybe you could. I don't know. Maybe you've changed. Maybe your acting has become better since Knock Knock. Don't hate me. I really like Keanu Reeves a lot. He's really nice. And I love John Wick. And I loved Matrix. And I love Speed. And, big fan. here. Big, massive fan. It's just knock, knock, man. And Dracula. Back to the movie. So yeah, you do need a really good actor to be stuck in this car to be able to actually really do something with it. Anthony Hopkins was invested from the start after reading the script, and he even called the director every night to discuss the character and what he can do with it. I'm pretty sure he was also very much studying inflections in the voices, knowing that he would only be heard, not seen for most of the movie. So where they veer off from the original is where the car starts driving on its own, with Anthony Hopkins driving the car from wherever he is. And it is very interesting to see what happens to a character that is in a self-driving car. Eddie is not having fun because William is really like, yeah, let's take it up a notch. Let's ramp it up. Let's see what this car can do. You start noticing, okay, this guy is not just an old vigilante who's trying to make the world better. He actually enjoys torturing people, because as he drives the car, he sees these two people pummeling someone in the streets, and he decides to intervene by smashing into one of the guys. And then he tells Eddie, hey, if this guy gets up after I have smashed him over with the car, I think he did it twice already, and this guy's like bleeding on the floor, then I'll let you free. You see Eddie like looking at this dude like, oh, come on, get up, you can get up. And then, spoiler, William just smashes the car into his face. And then he laughs into the mic, and it's like, haha, you thought I was gonna let you go? And the look on Eddie's face is just... So Eddie has a daughter, as we mentioned in the beginning. He needed $500 to be able to repair his car to then be able to pick her up from school. He has this thing where you can rub off the numbers, and maybe you won, maybe you haven't. As he sits in the car, because there's nothing better to do, he rubs off the last numbers and sees that he won $500. And then he starts laughing, and immediately William calls him, picks up himself. He's like, why are you laughing? Eddie is like, yeah, well, I got the money. I didn't even need to break into this car. I could have just gotten the money by rubbing this winning lottery ticket thingy, and it would have been good. And you see this desperation of, why? Just let me go. Just let me go. The ante is upped all the time. You have, at some point, Eddie completely losing his marbles and pulling out all the cameras, even though William keeps zapping him. So it's like, I'm so done. I'm so done. This is just, I can't anymore. And that was a nice scene where he screams into the camera, I am done! So then he lands in this parking space, and that's where we see Anthony Hopkins waiting for the car. And I was so happy because I was like, yes, we see him too. Woohoo!
Stop it.
He opens up at the window of the car and starts spraying in strawberry fragrance, because the car obviously stinks after a week that Eddie wasn't able to get out and, you know, had to pee in bottles and got one cookie, I think. So Anthony Hopkins opens the window, sprays the strawberry thing, talks about his daughter. He keeps talking about his daughter also throughout the movie, which is something that they have in common and should actually make them a little more buddy-buddy, but it doesn't. I'm pretty sure he's dragging him to kill him off, I guess. And since he has cancer and he's anyway dying, he doesn't really care if he's gonna get caught. What is with these guys who have cancer who like to torture people? I'm just saying there is a strange amount of weirdos in movies that have cancer and like to torture people. Just putting it out there. During the car ride, they have this discussion, and Eddie tells William, keep talking about your daughter. I don't think your daughter would appreciate it very much, what you're doing here. And Anthony Hopkins full brakes the car so that Eddie slams his head into the front of the car, And he's like, you have no right to talk about my daughter at all. That's when he explains to Eddie what happened, because Eddie is like, okay, at least tell me what happened. Something must have happened to your daughter, and you're projecting that onto me, and I have never done anything to anyone. So I don't understand why this is happening to me. William explains to Eddie that somebody wanted to steal their money while they were walking in an alley and then shot his daughter and she died. And since then, he bears a grudge against hoodlums and petty thieves, and that's why he keeps torturing them. William keeps driving the car while Eddie is kind of egging him on with certain sentences and saying things like, yeah, okay, but what gives you the right? Who are you to play judge and executioner? You don't even know me. William keeps driving the car faster and faster and faster. Eddie tells William, just be careful. I think I finally found it. And William is like, found what? And Eddie's like, the switch. And then, and they both projectile into the ravines. The car was fail-safed to even be able to call anyone to the outside. He kind of put a jammer into it. But since now there is no electricity anymore, the jammer was released. Eddie's daughter was able to call him. And Eddie picks up. And she's like, are you going to pick me up? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to pick you up. And there is this whole... And that's what I didn't like about this movie too much. This is what I liked more about the original. It's the whole premise of, I'm going to put a character in there, daughter, so that the character has more motivation to do good things. And I'm like, so without the daughter, he wouldn't? It's just something that blows my mind sometimes, why in a movie there needs to be certain chess pieces that need to be moved and kind of sacrificed in order for the story to move along. It's like we do not have our own motivation unless we have another human being we care about. And yes, of course, I get it. Listen, there would be no John Wick without his dog. I am aware. It's not like I'm not aware of the fact that many of the movies that I like are also driven by a certain motivation, a chess piece that was used against me and my emotions to be able to move the story along and get me more involved. So after the whole crash, William dies. I'm not going to tell you how Eddie is able to escape. He kind of hitchhikes with the guy and his stuff. He's like, what the hell happened to you? And he's like, long story. And then he's able to reach the mechanic guy and has the money to pay for his car. But the mechanic is like, listen, it's going to take 2 hours. And he's like, listen, in 20 minutes, I need to go and pick up my daughter. The mechanic is like, you're going to wait like everyone else. And he then picks up the pink bike and goes with the pink bike to his daughter. And his daughter is like, oh, daddy. And he's like, it's gonna be okay. And yes, it's all mushy and it was fine. The ending was fine. I had a bit of a hard time believing that Bill Skarsgård was her dad. He was really good in this movie. He carried himself brilliantly throughout the movie. Anthony Hopkins, can't say anything bad about him. He was brilliant as usual. And they very much riffed off of each other brilliantly. That's also something that I've noticed. Not every movie that I like has a perfectly good story that ends the way that I envision the movie ending. However, it's still a good movie in my eyes if the actors did their utmost and it was believable, and I was pretty much entertained throughout the movie until the end, where I was a bit, okay, fine, I'll let you have this one. And I know there is people out there who like these kind of endings. For all those who like these kind of endings, this one's for you. For me, it was just, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. I checked out, okay, who was all involved, and I was very much surprised that Sam Raimi, with his Raimi Productions, produced the movie, because it didn't seem like a movie that he would do. And funnily enough, he is the one who actually went to David Yarovesky and asked him to do this movie. And Yarovesky was like, well, it's not the usual kind of movie I do, but he already worked with Raimi on Night Books. And he said, listen, if Raimi comes knocking, I'm gonna make the movie. If Sam Raimi comes knocking, I think anyone would make the movie. Not that he's ever gonna knock at my door. Fun fact about the car that is starring in this movie is a custom-built Land Rover. And in the movie, it's called the Dolus. And it's pretty much a custom body design. And there are two vehicles that were made. One was made for filming the interior, and one was made for the serious stunt driving shots. The car's name is Dolus on purpose because it means deceitful trap in Latin, which again, petty thief breaks into car and is deceitfully trapped by William. And the emblem features Lady Justice because obviously we have this psychopath who thinks he is actually helping society by teaching these hoodlums some kind of lesson. And it's also designed as a warning, but only to those who actually know these kind of signs. So if you know Latin, you know what dolus means. It's like so far-fetched. It's kind of mean. Yarovesky, he also said that when he spoke to Anthony Hopkins about this role, he didn't want a Hannibal Lecter spin-off. He wanted this very much to be its own character and have its own twist. He was very much mesmerized by Hopkins because he's like, if you go on Instagram and you see him, you're like, this is not what I expected Anthony Hopkins' Instagram to be like. He kind of wanted that implemented into the character, that it's a little bit more playfully insane. He's like, what if he was posting stuff like that, but he had people bleeding out in his basement? Regarding Bill Skarsgård's character, he was like that Skarsgård has something very naturally sweet, which very much helped us as a viewer actually root for this character who does have his flaws, and yet you kind of see through his skeeziness and you can't help but like him. So yeah, I would highly recommend you watch this movie if you like these kind of mousetrap movies where somebody is stuck in one place and gets tortured for an hour. It was a lot of fun to watch. I do like Bill Skarsgård more in these kind of roles because he is very much multifaceted, which is kind of lost when he plays these bigger characters that are very much hidden by prosthetics. In this movie, they've very much had an awesome chemistry going on, and just because of that, this movie should be watched and enjoyed in its fullness, except for the ending. But even the ending, okay, I know, I keep harping on it. Wasn't a fan of the ending, but I get why it was happening. And on that note, let me know if you've watched the movie, if you liked the movie, and if you didn't like the movie, if it was the same points that I had mentioned, or if you were just bored because you didn't want to see Skarsgård stuck in a car for that long. This was me screaming into the void. Thank you for joining me once again in this floating madness, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!